This video describes how you, as an independent software vendor, can allow your resellers or your enterprise customers to administer their own licenses using the Orion network licensing platform from Agilis Software. It also shows the user interface that they will use. So to start with, why would you want to do this? With resellers, the issue faced by software vendors is that you may want to delegate day-to-day administration and fulfillment of individual orders to your resellers. However, you also want to track what licenses they've issued, what limits they've set on those licenses, and so forth. And Orion also allows you optionally to capture end user registration information so you can know who all your individual end customers are, their contact details, and so forth. If you also sell to enterprise customers who might be buying 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 licenses, you can use a similar mechanism to set up a pool of licenses in a hosted license server for that enterprise customer, so they can then be activating those licenses out of that pool. However, your customer system administrator can be running reports on those licenses, seeing who has licenses active out of the pool, be setting limits for individual users, and so on. Now, how is this done? What you first do is set up an administration domain for each reseller or enterprise customer in your hosted Orion service, and to see how to do that, please see the other video on the Orion user interface. You then set up the license limits you want to apply to that domain. So you might set a user count limit, you could set an overall time limit, you can configure your product features as you wish them to apply to all the licenses in that domain. And then finally, the other thing you need to do is to set up a domain level administrator with a password and login credentials. And all you then need to do is to send those login credentials to your customers or resellers system administrator, and they can then log in and see just their licenses and administer those specific licenses. Let's now see what your reseller or your end user system administrator would experience as they log into their particular domain. So we see here now the login screen for the hosted Orion service, and I'm going to log in as a reseller to a demonstration service. So we've entered the service name, Agilis Software Corp, and as I mentioned, as a reseller, I'm going to have my domain level credentials set up for me. So I'm going to log in for the product, Acme Desktop, and for the domain name, it's Reseller2. I also enter in the password that was provided for me, and log into my Orion service. So the first screen I come to is the detail for my domain. And as you can see that there are 100 users enabled. Now, there are these domain level license limit controls. However, as I'm logging in as the domain administrator, I can see them, but I can't affect them. So I can't change the quota limit, I can't change the time limit. I can do things such as pull up the domain level options, and I can see how those are set. However, again, I'm not able to modify them, I can just view them. And I can see here that 2 users have been enabled to date, there have been 96 users to date, and so on. So I then click on this tab for the user list, and I can see here that several users have been set up. User John, Fred Jones, and these might be the product serial number activation codes or the user names. I can do things such as add a new user. So I'd enter in the username, perhaps Gwen524. I can specify a password. I can specify a particular time limit that might apply to this user. So I might set up a 30-day time limit license, perhaps with a 5-day grace period and perhaps a 7-day warning threshold, and I could set up that license for that user. But the limits that apply to any user license I set up in this domain will have an envelope set by the overall domain level license limits. So for example, if this domain was set up just to do 30-day licenses, then any license in this domain could be at most a 30-day license. I can also run reports, and I can see here, I go to the report generator, I can generate reports, I can display the results and so forth. However, it can only be from my particular domain. So you can see there how as a reseller I'm able to go in and set up these licenses. I can run reports on my licenses, but I can't change anything beyond the domain level license limits. And as the software vendor, this is happening in the service that's my hosted service, so I can see all the licenses that have been activated by this reseller, and I can see what limits have been set for them. So I can allow the reseller to do the day-to-day administration, but as the software vendor, I know everything that's going on. So So that was a quick overview of how the Orion network licensing platform from Agilis Software allows you as a software vendor to delegate fulfillment and administration to either your resellers, any number of resellers, or your enterprise customers, while still keeping track of all of their licenses and of their licensing activity. For further questions, please contact us at the addresses shown on the screen, or you can watch the other demonstration videos provided at our website. Thank you for your attention.